Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. And we're back. Another episode of Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. It's September 10th, 2019, and I'm joined by the lovely Brad Wood.
Oh, you're too kind, Gavin.
We're just talking about the pop filter, how he doesn't want to use it because he doesn't want to cover up his pretty face.
That's right.
So, thanks again for joining me. Hopefully everyone is having a great week. We got a little bit of news for you today, a lot of blog posts, and some maybe a little chit-chat as well. But first things first, this week...
chit-chat. Don't we call that waffle?
Well, I think we got sued from IHOP. Just kidding. But, so first thing on the news this week is that this Friday you're going to be busy on the live web again, doing a webinar on the Command Box Service Manager. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Who told you that dirty lie? That's right. So Ortus has been doing kind of some webinars, like is bi-weekly every 2 weeks?
It's both. It's bi-weekly and bi-monthly. It's both the same way. Fortnightly.
Okay. Or is it semi? I always get confused on buys and semi, like semi-weekly, bi-weekly. But yeah, so basically every couple of weeks, to reword it, we've been just doing some webinars on just a regular basis to talk about the cool stuff we're working on and to highlight some of our products. And so apparently I got voluntold to do one this Friday on our new Command Box Service Manager module, which I just released a screencast on that recently. And I've been actually adding new features since I made the screencast on it. And so we have Windows support and Linux support and Mac OS support as well. And the Service Manager lets you create native services that start automatically when your computer reboots or automatically restart if Cold Fusion fails out of your Command Box servers. So people doing local development that wanted us to have a server always running, or people using Command Box on production, just installed in a VM, can use this Command Box Service Manager module. So my webinar on Friday will kind of just be going over, showing what it does and how it works. And yeah, I'm excited about it. It shouldn't be too long, probably 30, 40 minutes. Of course, I say that, but I like to talk, so it might be like 3 hours. We'll see. Split the difference.
Okay, cool. So that'll be a good way to people to check it out and see what it does, and obviously ask some questions as well. So it's going to be a Zoom webinar, so you guys can register for it. It does require registration. We have the link in the show notes, and we also have a blog post out on the website about that. Or if you go to ortussolutions.com and click under events, we have webinars, and you'll see the previous ones. So we did one on CBRM, I think a couple weeks back. Luis did that, and then there was another one before that too. So go check that out if you want to find out some more.
Yep. So, and it is a free webinar, just to be clear. You have to register for it so we know who you are, but it is free.
Cool. So probably the most controversial thing of the last week.
We like controversy, don't we?
Yep. So this actually was posted on the 27th of August, but we didn't catch up with it until late this last week. So basically there's a post on the forums at forums.adobe.com, and someone posted that the title of that question, I guess, was Adobe Cold Fusion license bait and switch for SaaS companies. So that's definitely a pretty clickbait title right there. So
it is. What's a SaaS company? Is that a company that talks back a lot? I have some SaaS children, I think.
Yeah. So basically, it looks like what's happening there is there's a company that's been using Cold Fusion for a long time, but instead of being a normal website or a blog, they actually have a SaaS company, so software as a service. So they develop a SaaS site that other businesses subscribe to, pay, log in, and then use the software. Mm-hmm. And so what this person was saying was that they filled out a little survey. Adobe sends you surveys, and they filled one out about what they're doing, and then sort of a half sales, half thug called up and said that basically that they're going to have to get a custom license because the EULA, the EULA, doesn't allow for their use of the software. So basically
Yeah.
51 people have been, responding. People like Charlie Earhart and some big members of the community have stepped in and said their piece too. But it's
What's
pretty
interesting is
scary.
I've heard some rumors of this sort of stuff happening months ago, but I always kind of assumed that it was just a confused Adobe salesperson who just didn't know how the licensing worked or something. Um, but it sounds like Adobe's really been pressing on this, and it is actually a sort of reinterpretation of Adobe's EULA in regards to how they're enforcing the licensing, which is a little scary, to be honest, just because a lot of people don't believe that that's what the EULA actually says. Unfortunately, if you ever read the license agreements, they're all very thick lawyer speak and kind of run on sentences, and it's always a little difficult to understand exactly what that would mean if it came down to going to court with it. But they're specifically targeting B2B sites, so business to business. So if you use Adobe Cold Fusion and you're a business and other businesses use the software that you're hosting, then Adobe's calling people up and saying that you classify as a service bureau or a software as a service. And apparently the line of reasoning goes like this. If I had 100 customers all using a Cold Fusion application I had written, and I hosted it on premise, and each of those 100 customers had their own servers, so 100 servers all deployed on site at each of those customers, then they would all purchase their own license, and Adobe would sell 100 licenses. But when I have a software as a service and I host it on my singular server and just have 100 customers log in, apparently what Adobe's saying is, well, hey, we're losing revenue, so we want you to pay us for 100 licenses because you have 100 people using it. What's interesting is, from what people have been saying on the thread, is Adobe's been calling them up, and apparently like Rakshith, the product manager from Adobe Cold Fusion, has been on these calls with people. So this isn't just kind of rogue salesmen at
Oh, wow.
Adobe. Yeah, I mean, so the Cold Fusion team, I think, are well aware of what's happening. I don't think they're in control of it, but I think they're aware of it. And so what customers are having happen is Adobe calls them up and says, hey, we think you're in violation of our interpretation of the EULA. You're a software as a service, you're B2B, you're violating our agreement. So they give them two options. They say you can either renegotiate a new sort of enterprisey custom licensing agreement for which there is no standard pricing model. Adobe just kind of sort of comes up with a price based on like revenue or number of customers, or I'm not sure exactly. Nobody really knows what it's based on, but Adobe says we're going to come up with some number and you're going to pay us this number, and you'll have kind of like a custom enterprise agreement. Or we're going to sue you for 10 years of back licensing, which is the really scary part. So people who've been Adobe Cold Fusion customers for years are literally being threatened with lawsuits from Adobe for 10 years of back licensing, unless they agree to enter into a new agreement with Adobe and negotiate a higher price for their license, which also involves a new licensing agreement they have to sign that has additional items in it that aren't part of a standard CF EULA. So obviously, a lot of people are upset about this because they feel that Adobe is interpreting things that aren't in the EULA. And I mean, obviously, I think it's a little unprecedented that if you write a software and other businesses use it, that would somehow make you a service bureau. It's not like you're a hosting company, like HostTech necessarily.
And I did hear that HostTech is, they have a special agreement with Cold Fusion.
They do,
and so
and I would expect that if you're actually a hosting company where people pay you for writing Cold Fusion on a server, I would kind of expect them to have a custom deal. But a lot of people just have an app they've written that other businesses use, and they're like, "Well, I'm not hosting, Cold Fusion for them. They're not developing their own Cold Fusion on my servers. I've just written an app that they're using." So a lot of people are understandably, frustrated about this. Naturally, a lot of people say, "Well, switch to Lucy." But even if you did, Adobe's still threatening to sue them for 10 years of back licensing for the time that they were using Cold Fusion in a manner that Adobe is claiming was not in alignment with the license agreement. So it's kind of one of those things where even if you don't think the EULA says what Adobe says it says, are you willing to hire a lawyer and go to court for potentially years to try to prove it? Or are you going to give in and renegotiate your licensing with Adobe? So very interesting thread. I recommend anyone using Adobe Cold Fusion, especially if you're doing B2B stuff, other businesses use your software, you should read this thread and think critically about what your future looks like, and just think about what they're doing with the licensing, because it's a little interesting.
Yeah, and I saw someone throw out there a number where they said it was going to be 10 times their original cost. Somebody else said they already had a bunch of standard licenses, so when they upgraded, it actually wasn't much of a difference. So obviously it does depend, but yeah, it sounds like you said, it's scary, right? Anytime someone is threatening with a lawsuit, it's kind of scary.
Right. I mean, I get that Adobe wants to be able to make money.
They got to protect their business.
We all do. Yeah, sure. And I think they see companies making a lot of money on software built with Cold Fusion, and they wanted to get a piece of that. It sort of feels almost in line with where a lot of other Adobe products have gone. Like the Creative Cloud has really pushed for kind of a reoccurring licensing model, where you're paying like a yearly or a monthly fee to use it. It's not quite like that, but it feels more like a step in that direction, where Adobe's saying, you're making money off our software, and if we think you're making a lot of money, we feel like we should be making a lot of money off you.
Yeah.
And so, based on how many companies you're serving with your B2B software, Adobe wants a bigger cut of that. And apparently, from what I'm seeing in the thread, the revenue that these companies are making is coming into play in what Adobe decides to charge them with this newly negotiated deal. Some of the people in the forum were saying that Adobe was saying, well, we stand by this price we want you to pay because that's 2% of your overall revenue or something like that. So
if you're not successful,
yeah,
then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so. If you don't make any money,
you're fine.
if your business sucks and you have no customers, you're good to go. Adobe will not be knocking on your door, you hope.
Yeah, looks like Gary said something in the chat about it. He says he hopes somebody goes to court to fight this. It sounds like it needs a precedent to be set. So it'll be interesting. I mean, like you said, the Euler is probably different across all the different versions too. So every year,
not that much. The last two versions of Cold Fusion, I took it's a total pain in the butt to do it, but I've extracted all the text from the Eulers when they come out, and I've done a diff on them with the previous version, and they've touched very little. Okay. However, in this thread, people are saying that Adobe's told them they will be making some significant changes in 2020. Adobe Cold Fusion 2020, the next version, supposedly to remove the ambiguity on how they're interpreting the EULA, which will be interesting. So if you've always just upgraded Cold Fusion and never paid attention to the EULA, when 2020 comes out, you should probably read through it. I know I'll definitely be doing another text compare to see just exactly what they've added when 2020 does come out.
Yep, it's definitely interesting for sure, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people asking a lot of questions at CF Summit coming up soon too. So interesting. Anyway, like I said, a little controversial. Sorry for the detour there, everybody, but we think obviously it's pretty important news, and everybody should, be aware of the situation and, do your reading, do your due diligence, and and hopefully
and talk to your lawyer.
Yeah.
Should we add a disclaimer that Gav and I are not lawyers?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're not lawyers. Don't take any legal advice from us.
That's right.
Or any advice from us.
Advice.
Maybe some Cold Fusion advice now and then will be okay, but yeah.
But not legal advice. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, it's just something to be aware of. And just a side note, so those of you who didn't hear the podcast from a couple weeks ago, Charlie Earhart posted a blog post about content disappearing off the forums between August 22nd and September 9th, I thought. But at September 10th, it's still there, but it's possible that entire thread will disappear. So,
how convenient.
Yeah, how convenient. But so that might be something we need to make a backup of or something, or move it elsewhere, because that's something, we want to look at that and yeah, it's a lot of 51 replies already.
I don't understand the issue with why with all the content being lost on the Adobe forums. I mean, it sounds like they took a backup of the database and converted it into maybe some new software, and then took a while to release it, and they don't want to take a new backup and reconvert it. But honestly, that's
I
can't imagine a scenario in which they're okay with just losing a few weeks worth of content and just being like, well, it's gone.
Yeah, well, I think at least someone should probably at least make a backup of that forum post, PDF it or something might be useful.
I've saved the HTML locally because I was curious if it would disappear for other reasons. But yeah, absolutely, don't want to lose this information.
Yep. So you can't take legal advice from us, but someone in the chat just said, "Why not refuse to take their survey and hang up if they call you?" So if you want to avoid
Well,
them, go for it. But yeah, I mean,
you can do that, but doesn't mean that they might not call you.
Yeah. So, anyways, just again, so check it out. Look at it for sure, and if you are using Cold Fusion, it's something you might have to be aware of. So. Back to more positive news. Just wanted to remind everybody that the Coldbox training in Bangalore, that India, that Ortus Solutions is doing, Luis Mahana will be there in India, and his training sold out. So if you guys were hoping to attend that, sorry, we extended it a little bit already. So we got a bit bigger setup than we wanted, and we already sold out. So appreciate all the attention and anyone who helped share the word and spread the word. Really good to see that. So hopefully it's a success, and then we're trying to do more of those in the future. So
yeah, that's pretty exciting that it completely sold out. To be honest, the sales were a little slow at first with the India training in Bangalore, but it finally kind of took off, and several companies signed up a bunch of people, and so Luis is going to have a full house now.
Yep, so that'll be good, especially with CF Camp going on at the same time. I wasn't sure, how many of the bigger people, bigger companies that were sending people would, do a local training when the option of a CF Camp was there. But we'll talk more about that as we go through to the conference section.
Yep.
But also another reminder, the Into the Box 2019 videos are available now. So we got all of that out. We released that just over a week ago, but I want to remind everybody, a lot of questions about when the videos will be available. And if
who has access to those, Gavin, for the people listening online?
So if you're an attendee or speaker at Into the Box, you have access to that already. You should have received an email. If you did not, please follow up with us and we'll get you the code to get into that. And then if you were not an attendee of Into the Box, you can purchase the package. I believe they're individual and package deals, and so you can purchase them and basically watch more than 23 hours of instructional video. So
nice. So even if you weren't able to make it, you can still get all that. Now, I do believe we embedded into our EULA for the video purchase, you're required to come to ITB 2020. Did we do that? Is that in there?
I'm not sure. So you better buy them before we stick that in there.
Lawyers are standing by. Purchase our videos, but read the fine print.
Yep. Okay. So after that, we also have CF Summit coming up. So early bird is still going. So maybe that's just the
it's
normal
just a perpetual
pricing.
early bird, man. It's never going away.
Yep, exactly. So still a great deal. $99 for the conference pass, and that includes breakfast and lunch on 2 days. And then we have a lot of great speakers. I'll be there. Brad will be there, and there's some good ones too. Luis and Eric from Ortus, and 5 or 6 from Adobe, and a lot of great community members. You'll see Pete Freitag and Brian Klass and Charlie Earhart and a lot of great people there speaking as per usual.
I hope the perpetual early bird isn't a sign that they're having problems getting attendees this year. Yeah, I mean, usually CF Summit fills up 500, 550 people and doesn't seem to be a problem. So
yeah, I mean, even after they had that tragedy, that big shooting in Vegas a couple of years back,
yeah, I remember that year.
Yeah, it was slow for a while, but they still filled up and got their 500 people. So, I mean, if that can't keep people away. I thought they had
closer to 450 that year. But yeah, I mean, it was only slightly lower. It didn't put a huge dent in it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the marketing budget's big enough. They're like, hey, who cares? We can keep it cheap. I'm not going to complain about that. So
yeah, so I mean, there's no excuse not to come, guys. The hotels are cheap in Vegas. The conference is cheap. You get a couple of free meals. Great content. Now, they have looked at the schedule. The schedule's available online. You can see who's speaking when, so you can plan your day. But
I should probably see when I'm speaking.
Yeah, but there's a lot of great content there. So definitely check it out and, start planning. And then with the conference, we have some additional information on the pre-conference. So the Cold Fusion Specialist training is one of the pre-workshops, and that information, we actually have a link in the show notes for another blog post with a little more about it. But basically, sign up. You get a bunch of videos to go through beforehand. On the day, you'll revise that information, go over it. You'll take an exam at the end of the day. It's a full-on day. You get a lot of information. I think it's running from 9 in the morning to like 6 that night, depending on how fast you finish the test. But it's a certificate program, so you can add that to your resume, and then I don't think they've had the certificate program since version 9, so it's definitely a big deal to have that back. And for those of you looking for Cold Fusion work, it never hurts to have another thing on your resume there.
The only better thing you could put in your resume is listens to the Modernize or Die podcast, because I'd hire anybody just on the spot if I saw that.
We got 20 people applying for a job, Brad.
Yeah. The resume is pouring.
Yeah, but we also have 3 other pre-conference trainings that they have there. So Pete Freitag's doing his hands-on Cold Fusion security workshop. It's a great workshop. I've done that one myself.
Also known as Scare the Poop Out of You, so you go fix your code.
Yep.
Just the subtitle.
And then Charlie Earhart's doing going from 0 to 60 with Cold Fusion and Docker and Cold Fusion images. So he's got a blog post out about that workshop, so you can find out more about it. And I'm still trying to schedule an interview with him so I can get that done, and we can put that on there on Soapbox podcast. So you can find out more about what he's doing with Docker these days. So. And then we have another one from the Adobe Cold Fusion team, the Performance Monitoring Toolset. So you can learn all about their toolset there. And they have a blog post that we released in last week's show notes. So you can go chase that down too if you want to find out more about why they're doing it. And apparently it's the workshop we've all been waiting for. So
Dan Card has a question about the that pre-conference training from Adobe. I don't know if you know the answer off the top of your head. He asked, can you take the test at other times or only at the conference? Do you know if Alicia clarified that?
I have not found that out. From what I'm aware of, that you basically go through that day and you take the test at the end of the day. If someone's not there or if they fail, I'm not sure what the setup is there. I think they're intending to not only do this training again, but they're also offering additional Cold Fusion trainings for more specialized topics.
Yeah. So the quote we have here in our show notes from Alicia just simply says, the in-person workshop will be a review of material and include an exam at the end. And then from the website, it says, following the training, you will complete an online assessment. Upon successful completion, you'll receive your Adobe Cold Fusion Specialist certificate. So if it's an online assessment, you may be able to take it after the fact. But I don't know. It's a good question. Doesn't seem that it's specific on that.
Yeah, Mark said that on the CFML Live podcast, they talked about it's only going on at the conference. So I'm not sure exactly, because when I talked to her before, that they were talking about additional trainings they're going to offer. So I'm not sure when they're going to make it available. Maybe it's only at certain times and certain
I would hope
venues.
They would put it out there. I mean, because there's a lot of Cold Fusion developers that don't have an opportunity to go to Cold Fusion, to CF Summit. And that would kind of suck if they don't have the opportunity to get the certification from Adobe. Yeah, obviously, maybe Adobe's using that as a way to kind of force people to the conference.
Yeah, I think what the big thing will be is that they'll probably have limited availability on it. I don't think it's going to be something you can just sign up online and take and do it. They're going to have these type of workshops where they're periodically at different venues, or they'll open them up to the providers. Because previously, I think the Pearson company used to do them with the CF9 versions way back, but I'm not sure.
With the limited space, they could do like a Hunger Games thing where people just like fight and the last 100 people left alive all get certified or something. Just throwing out ideas. I don't know if Adobe's listening, Yeah.
So it's a good program. I think I'll be a TA this year to be able to help with that. So if you guys are doing the specialist program, you might see me there too. But if you don't see me before the conference, I'll be at the conference speaking, but after the conference, Ortus is doing their own training. So we have boot camps set up. So we have 2 trainings after the conference. So the conference itself is Tuesday, Wednesday, October 1st and 2nd, and then the 3rd and the 4th, Ortus is doing the training. Basically 2 boot camps. Myself and Eric Peterson will be doing the Cold Fusion Hero to Zero workshop, and then you and Luis will be doing the Coldbox Hero to Superhero API edition.
Superhero. What?
And so that's on October 3rd and 4th, Thursday and Friday, and we'll be at the area resort and casino. So we're in their special tower suites. So we got the nice suite. Yeah. So it's a nice setup. We're all comfortable. We should have a little kitchenette and everything. We'll have the espresso machine going, so you guys can keep up on your energy when Luis and the rest of us are dropping knowledge bombs.
If I recall, Luis is the one who took a nap last year.
I know it does take it out of you training. Doing
I'm really looking forward to Vegas. I don't know why. It's just so much fun. Um,
We always
it's
have good time, good food, good people.
yeah, there's just so much food. There's all the stuff we go walk around and see. Well, what's the place we go? The restaurants, and it's connected to the Venice hotel, and it's like you're inside a giant like outdoor place, but it's all like an indoor mall.
Oh, you mean the Venetian one or the over at
Yeah.
Caesars? I don't know. There's a lot of great places there.
All I know is it's a ton of fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and if you guys do come to the workshops, we always set up a private Slack for the group, and we keep in touch afterwards, and the group members help each other as well as us chiming in. It's a good networking opportunity, so definitely think you should do that. And obviously, if you're going to take the training in India, the same training is what me and Eric are doing here, Call Box Zero to Hero, in Vegas. So, and then if you've already done that one, a lot of people ask for what's next, and so the Hero to Superhero API edition is going to dive deeper into modules and more of that. There'll be some API specific stuff, but there'll be a lot of stuff that you'll get a lot of value out of it, even if you're not working on APIs. So
I see a suggestion called Hero to Zero. Is that where we remove the knowledge from your brain?
Hope not.
So what's the next step after Hero to Superhero? We're going to need to we've already shot the moon. We got to jump the shark now. Where do you go from superhero to Captain Marvel? I mean, what is it?
That's a good question.
Thanos level.
You'll have to come to the training to find out.
Next year,
exactly. And we did mention the boot camp in India is sold out. So sorry everybody who was hoping to come to that, but again, we are doing the same training at CF Summit. If you want to do any of the trainings, the podcast 10 discount code works for all of them, but hopefully we get a good report from Bangalore, India, and if you guys are going to that, let us know how it is. Give us some feedback. We'd like to be able to talk about it here and get your perspective on the training as well. So again, that is going to be October 16th and 17th. And at the same time, pretty much, you're going to be gallivanting around the world as well, right, Brad?
Gallivanting around the world. Talking about CF Camp?
That's the one.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're doing. My wife plans these things, but I'm going over with one of my daughters and my wife early, and we're going to hit Paris, and I think we're going to hit London and fly around and end up in Munich and maybe a day trip to Austria. I don't know. Everything's so close when you get over there, so...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're gonna do some sightseeing in the wings of CF Camp, but I'm excited for CF Camp too. It's always super fun, and
their early bird special just ended. Actually, no, it ends on September 10th. So you guys got a couple more days.
Today, go!
You got a couple more days to go get the early bird. So
a couple more days. It is September 10th today.
Well, September 11th is when the regular pricing starts. So today. So if you're watching live, you can go buy it. If not, I hope you listen to it.
If you're listening to this tomorrow, you're too late.
Yep. So, CF Camp tickets are out there. The price has gone up. It looks like roughly about $40 difference in the price from early bird to regular. So not a big deal, but
still worth coming.
Yep. If you wait a little longer, basically right before the price goes up even more. So get your prices. All the speakers have been announced. The lineup's online. If you go to cfcamp.org/speakers.html, you can see all the speakers. We've got a really diverse group there. You're speaking there, Eric's speaking there, and also Jorge Reyes from Ortus Solutions will be speaking, as well as a lot of great community members. And I like the variety that you guys get in Europe. A lot more people that can't make it out to the States for some of these other conferences. So you get a lot of people, but there's a lot that do. You got some of those conference specialists like Nolan Irk. He's everywhere. He'll be there as well as as well as some of the traditionals like Charlie Howard will be there, and Matt Gifford will be there, and a few others.
I'm excited at the number of names for CF Camp on the speaker list that I don't recognize from Adam. I think that's awesome. A lot of new speakers, which I think is really cool, to be honest.
Yep, exactly. It does look pretty good, and like I said, I know I keep saying it, but I'll try and make it next year, but not this year. It's the 10th episode, or 10th anniversary, I guess, of CF Camp, so pretty cool they made it this far. And if you guys have been at the last couple, this time they're also announcing they're going to have the third episode of Codemasters. So last year on the localhost.fm podcast, Mark Drew and Rod Dudley, the hosts, they actually did the Codemasters and actually recorded it. So they have it up on YouTube. So we have a link in the show notes if you want to go check that out. And later on we'll share the tweet that has that as well. But yeah, it sounded like a lot of fun. So what have they done over the years with Codemasters, Brad?
Well, at least 2 years when I was there, because I haven't hit CF Camp every year. We did Code Wars that Gert would run, and they would have teams of people that would kind of take turns, and they'd narrow it down until they had a winner. And they would do stuff like code golf, and the game of golf, you have to get the lowest score possible. So in code golf, you have to write some code that does something with the fewest number of characters possible. Oh, wow. Obviously, not a good idea in real life code, but an interesting thing to play around with for as a game. One of my favorite code golf problems that my team won one of the last years I was there was a problem where you had a room full of like velociraptors all like tied to chains, and you had to figure out which velociraptor whose chain wasn't long enough to reach any other velociraptor, and you just had a bunch of coordinates in a text file, and you had to write code that would calculate the distance between all the different velociraptors to figure out who couldn't reach another one. And Mark Drew totally bailed my team out, and he was like, do an HTML5 canvas tag, and you can just have it draw a circle for each velociraptor with the diameter being the length of the chain, and you can just visually look at it and see. And he was totally right. The other team was trying to go through and do it with math and all the possible combinations. And my team took Mark Drew's advice, and cool. We slapped it into an HTML5 canvas, drew the circles out, and we're like, boom, that's the velociraptor who doesn't overlap at all. But that kind of stuff's fun. Everybody sort of just sits around and drinks beer and heckles, and you code live up on the projectors and stuff. So that's some of the stuff they do, at CF Camp, and the after party is always a lot of fun there. So I'm looking forward to it again. One year I ended up in a sumo suit before the night was through and had to wrestle with Chris Schmitz. So I mean, anything can happen.
Wow, and I thought Vegas was going to be the party central, but I guess Germans. It's Oktoberfest, right? Oktoberfest in October in CF Camp. It could be interesting. Although Oktoberfest sounds like it goes for 8 months of the year these days, but anyways. So I think Mark Drew and Rod Dudley are going to be there again, doing another live episode. And if you want to hear more about CF Camp, they actually had a few episodes on their podcast. So localhost.fm is the podcast. Go check it out. They talk about some other interesting stuff too. It's not just Cold Fusion related. They do mention Cold Fusion, JavaScript, other languages, and sort of a top level thing. So it's a good podcast to listen to as well. Okay, so moving on. Now we come to the real fun stuff. The real blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So I've got quite a few things here. So first one I'm actually going to show you. We got a tweet from Michael Bourne talking about caching in Lucy. Or caching. How do you like caching? Apparently I say it worse than Brad. But so he just got a little tweet here. Caching in Lucy requires one config struct and two functions. So he's just trying to show you how simple it is to get up and running with caching. So here he's using ehcache in the application CFC, and shows how easy it is to be able to put stuff in the cache and then get stuff from the cache. And it shows you idle timeouts and just normal timeouts. So it's pretty easy to get up and running with caching. If you want to go a little further, more providers and everything. I know Adobe Cold Fusion 2018 has more providers now than it used to. Of course, if you're using Cachebox from Ortus, we have extensions that allow you to do now. I think we've always had Couchbase. We're doing Redis. Now, if you're with Lucy, MongoDB is the next one on our list here. So we're I think it's almost released.
Also has a disk store, a database store. In an in-memory store as well.
That's right.
I mean, cache. So I mean, earlier back in the day, Cold Fusion engines didn't really have much caching functionality built in, which is when Cachebox was born. And so Cachebox can still kind of sit on top of even the built-in Lucy or Adobe Cold Fusion caching. And of course, when the whole benefits of that being you can swap it out without any changes to your application. So
Yep, and I like that for local development too. If I'm in local development, I use an in-memory cache, and then obviously when we deploy out to staging, we use Couchbase or Redis or whatever we need.
Yeah, we do that at Ortus all the time. Local RAM cache, and then once you get staging, we're hitting Couchbase. And the good thing is your application code doesn't know or care.
Yep, it's pretty neat. So that was a cool little tweet, and then Lucy Open Source also tweeted about having a great community behind Lucy. So they link out to their lucy.org/get support or get-support.html. It talks about all the different ways you can, find out about stuff going on with Lucy, the community, the forum, how to, submit tickets and everything else. And it's, nice little tweet there, just reminding you that, there's a lot of options for getting out in the community.
Yeah.
And Lucy obviously does a lot at CF Camp too, right?
Oh, yeah. So it's like if you want to yell at the Adobe Cold Fusion engineers, you go to CF Summit. If you want to yell at the Lucy engineers, you go to CF Camp. That's how it usually tends to work.
And Brad likes to yell at everybody, so he goes.
Oh, I yell at everybody. You bet. They see me coming and they're diving behind the table. Yeah, Lucy community. I don't know. I don't think there's been any tweets. We probably don't have this anywhere. Zach Spitzer has done a bunch of work lately, going through making just like grammar fixes to the Lucy source code. He's gone through like all of the error messages, all of the screens and everything, and just made little tiny tweaks. He had a giant pull request with like 80 different little fixes, which is great because I mean you didn't even have to know Java to be able to go through and make some of those improvements. So it's great to see people contribute to Lucy. But I mean, also, if you can just contribute with monetary support, one of the biggest limiting things for Lucy, I can say for sure, is just the dollars and cents that it takes to pay for the development efforts. So if you don't have the time to, go through and submit pull requests, then you can throw them $10-15 a month or more to help to support the development services.
Yep, for sure. I mean, you're not paying big licensing fees with Lucy. They don't have a professional license. You can be a supporter of the Lucy, foundation. So, support them where you can. But yeah, so just a reminder, Lucy's out there, different ways to get support, and obviously you can support them as well.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to support Lucy unless you're already an Ortus Patreon supporter. Then you can support them. It's got to go in that order.
For sure.
Just kidding.
And so we have another blog from Gregory Alexander. Now, this one's talking about how to speed up your site with lazy loading. So no specific Cold Fusion references here, but I thought everyone can, learn a little more about making their sites a little quicker. Cold Fusion gets a rep sometimes. So
is this speeding up the server side stuff, or is it talking about speeding up like the front end JavaScript and CSS? What's it talking about?
Basically front end JavaScript, loading images once you scroll into view, etc. And the cool thing is, I think it's kind of cool, is he actually implemented it on that blog itself. So when you load the page, everything loads kind of lazy loaded. So like it hits you fast, and then all the different pieces.
Because the text came in and there was no background behind it. Exactly. It took a second to finish loading.
So I'm not sure if that's his intention or not, but you can see it happening. If you scroll down the page, refresh, and then scroll back up, the image at the top of the page lazy loads and fades in after the fact. So it's kind of neat, like just to just see it happening. But just talking about different ways to lazy load, and a lot of the cool kids are doing that on their stuff. So I thought we'd share that.
It's all about that perceived, performance, right? Because I've definitely fallen victim to looking at performance numbers only from like Fusion Reactor. When I'll say, my Cold Fusion requests are processing in 150 milliseconds or something really fast. But then users complain that the website's slow, and you're like, but Fusion Reactor shows really fast times. But then you go to, Chrome, and you kind of open up your networking tab, and you realize that you've got JavaScript files and things, and the browser is blocking and not, rendering the page until it's downloaded all these assets. And so even though the Cold Fusion part of your site may be fast, kind of that perceived load time can definitely be a lot slower. So I think that's good advice.
Yep, and Greg Alexander, he's actually got an open source blog project called the Galaxy blog. We talked about that last week actually, and he's really focused on performance, SEO speeds and everything. So Google site speeds and everything. So if you go to his blog, he has a few other blog posts about that type of stuff, looking at performance and so I think it's pretty interesting. You know, we've got to look at both sides of things. We can't just be server side guys. So. And then also, Michael Alight from TerraTech posted about how to find your next job as a Cold Fusion developer, job hunting tips for Cold Fusioners or CFers. So a few tips there, you know, some resources for job seekers too. Obviously, you know, there are less jobs than some of the bigger languages out there, but there's surprisingly a good number of jobs still available for Cold Fusion developers, and they're usually pretty good jobs. So there's a few tips there as well. So if you want to go through, it's on terratech.com, and obviously we'll have the link in the show notes here. And next we actually have Kai Koenig commenting on a tweet from TerraTech about the State of the Union.
That's so meta. It's like commentary about commentary.
Yep. So I'm going to share that on the screen here right now for those of you who are watching via video on YouTube. So it's just basically talking about how this TerraTech CF survey tells you a lot about the lack of maturity in the CFML world. So given how old the platform is, there's no excuse for this. And obviously, if you can't see, it's showing a graph where basically the you know, auto deployment tools or CI tools that people are using, and Ant has about 30, Bamboo has about 8 or 10, Command Box has about 20.
Those
GitLab,
are votes, by the way, number of people using it.
Yeah. And then, GitLab's probably like 35, Grunt's about 20, Gulp's about 35. I don't auto deploy is up to like 130 or something, and then Jenkins is 50.
Like the vast majority of people basically still do manual deployments. I mean, the highest one is probably Jenkins. So about what, 56? No, about 50 people said they use Jenkins, and that's less than half of the number of people that don't automate anything.
Obviously, this is a small sample from those who answered the survey, but still.
Well, I'll be honest. I can't prove this, but generally speaking, the subset of the demographic of the Cold Fusion community that kind of crawl out of the woodwork and answer the State of the CF Union survey tend to be people more inclined to doing advanced modern things, just from what I've seen. So I've always kind of assumed that the rest of the community we don't hear from is probably a little less modern.
Yeah, the black hole developer, the closet developer, they're usually not up to speed.
You can't find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, automation has been a standard in development in general, but especially web development in just years and years. I mean, I remember forever ago, was it Jeff Atwood? Somebody had a list of, like, if you're interviewing in a job, like, here's like 10 things that they should be doing, or you should just walk out the door. And one of them was they should have like a single push button build that does everything and deploys. And that was probably like a blog post 10 or 15 years ago. That's been the standard in the development community. And so many Cold Fusion people still don't automate things. And I think that a lot of time, gets spent by your developers and your ops people kind of managing manual processes. You have a lot of opportunity for, screw ups and more difficult rollbacks, and people just aren't embracing it, which is definitely tricky.
Yeah, I mean, if you're out there and you're not using anything yet, I mean, GitLab has a free tier. So GitLab.com, we use GitLab, the open source version for customers. But, if you're just wanting to get up and running, like I have my own little side projects running on GitLab. So I can play with it and mess with it, and it's surprisingly easy to get up and running with. But bucket pipelines are pretty good. And then I know now with GitHub even has some stuff. I mean, you could use Circle CI; they have a free plan, And then Travis has, free for open source projects. There's a lot of free stuff out there that you can get your teeth into to get up and running before you have to worry about deploying your business stuff there. So, there's no excuse not to play with it, and it does save your life. It's definitely a big plus. So.
Thank you, Michael. Michael pulled it up. It was Joel Spolsky's The Joel Test. You guys can Google that. It was a really interesting list.
Cool. So next on the list, we have our buddy Ben Adele. When he's not talking about Angular, he's still fitting some Lucy time in here.
He's not talking about Angular and not lifting weights.
Yeah, but he's in this blog post here, he was just talking about how they use Launch Darkly, which I've never heard of before, but it helps them keep track of feature flags for their code. So it handles their JavaScript side and their Cold Fusion side. So whenever they have a new feature, they wrap it in a feature flag, and then they can make it available. And he's talking about how feature flags introduce a new type of technical debt. And basically, he was looking at Cold Fusion to try and help locate these feature flags and and figure it out. So it was kind of an interesting post. A lot of people don't have a big product where they've got so much work going on that they have to feature flag stuff, and so it doesn't happen that often. But it was pretty neat to see what he's done with it and what they're using it for. So, and obviously his blog is benadao.com. You can see that one there. So locating launch darkly feature flag references in your code.
Launch darkly.
Yep. And then we also had that tweet from CF Camp. So don't miss out on the 3rd episode of Codemasters. So they said, beside the awesome talks at CF Camp is always a lot of fun too. So don't miss out on the 3rd episode of Codemasters from your hosts, Mark Drew and Rod Dudley. And so there's a link to YouTube there. And so it's pretty interesting. I love I actually listened to the audio version of it, so I might have to go back and watch the video because it does look a bit of fun. So I have to finish watching that there. And it looks like you were busy too, Brad. So you had a webinar released just recently. You did a little screencast.
I did. This is my first screencast where I got to use my new Yeti microphone, and I even used the pop filter on it. But yeah, I was talking about the Command Box Service Manager module, which is what I'll be doing kind of a deep dive on our webinar this Friday. But I have like a 7-minute screencast that I put out there, which kind of gives you like the quick and dirty, this is how you install it, this is how you use it, now give us all your money, or something like that. I think step 4 was profit, maybe. But yeah, that's the screencast. And after I recorded the screencast, I actually added Mac support. So it's like instantly out of date as soon as I recorded it. But you can watch that to prep yourself for the webinar this Friday and then come primed with your questions for me.
Yep. So if you go to ortussolutions.com, you'll see Command Box Screen Service. Screencast Service Manager module post there.
How many words can we fit into one sentence?
Yeah.
Command Box Screencast Service Manager module.
How many can I get right? Because today I'm messing up a few.
Say it 10 times fast. We'll find out.
Yep. So we also had a blog post from Pete Freitag on how to restrict what htaccess files can do on Apache. So I guess the newer Apache 2.4, most people are using that these days, but there's actually directives that you can control to say what htaccess can actually do. So I think even in the earlier versions, you could say what htaccess had control over. So if you wanted to, limit your htaccess files to only do certain things, you can, restrict that. And so his blog post goes into that. And obviously with security, you probably should be, looking at ways to do this because your htaccess is in your root. So it's something that, if you give people access to your root files when you're uploading files or whatever, you don't want to have someone overwrite it and do some damage.
So the idea is somebody might be able to upload a malicious .htaccess file that would allow them to fiddle around with how you have Apache configured. So this allows you to kind of box in just how much it can change. That's cool. So if you wanted to maybe only allow them to do rewrites, but that was it, then you could limit that.
Yep.
I like Pete's little articles. They're almost done more like a knowledge base article. They're usually short and sweet, and they have a little example, and then boom, that's it.
Yep. He doesn't mess around. Just gives you the information you need.
That should be like a tagline. Foundio, we don't mess around. Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. No time to mess around when you're dealing with security. And then we also had a blog on the coldfusionadobe.com website about using memoize functions in CFML.
Is that how you pronounce that? Because I've never known how to pronounce that.
I don't know.
MEMOIZE. I've heard that.
Memoize?
I've seen that word forever, and I've never heard anybody say it. So I've always just had whatever came out inside my head when I saw it.
I don't know. Memoize is what I thought.
I kind of like memoize, even though I don't think it's right.
That sounds wrong to me.
It does.
It might be how you say it, but it doesn't sound right.
That's what makes it fun.
So anyway, he was talking about, now, I always forget, Elias Poor-Yorak. Who was that again?
John Wilsh, I believe.
John Wilsh, okay.
Alas Poor-Yorak.
It's Alias.
Or it's Alias. Is it Alias or Alas?
I thought it was Alias. Anyways,
John Wilsh.
John Wish.
John Wish.
John Wish.
Jeez.
Okay.
This podcast is a place where names get butchered on a regular basis. Yeah, it's John Wish.
So, yeah, he's talking about how he uses React hooks recently, and basically, one of the good things about them is it allows you to memoize calculations. And so if you have a slow or expensive function, basically if you give it the same arguments all the time, it just gives you a cache value, because passing the same arguments, the result should give you the same. And so he talks about how you can do this in Cold Fusion. So he creates a function and sort of stores it in like a result, and talks about using a closure or not and different things. And that got me thinking, is like, that's pretty cool. And I know that in Lucy they already have the cache within for functions.
So, well, yeah. So is that not an Adobe Cold Fusion? Because I actually scrolled through this the other day when this post came out. I kind of skimmed it, and in my mind, I was thinking, why didn't he just use the built-in, cached within stuff? This part of CFML, but is that only for Lucy?
Yeah, that's only for Lucy now. I know,
geez.
We had
so you could replace this entire blog post that he took all this time writing with just or freaking use Lucy, and you're done.
Yeah, and say cache within.
All of this crap only applies if you're a sucker on Adobe Cold Fusion. Yeah, I mean, in Lucy, it's like you were just saying, you put like cached within, just like a CF query, and boom, the entire. If it's a deterministic function, meaning the output is determined purely based on the inputs, then you can have it cache in any cache you want. In memory, EH cache, cache base.
Yep, exactly. So I actually looked it up, and on CF Docs, it doesn't even mention that. So I put in an issue. So Pete said, "Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out." So he's going to update the CF Docs for that too. Because if you look at CF function on CF Docs, it doesn't mention the cache within at all. But on the Lucy Docs, if you go to docs.lucy.org and then search for function, you'll see that there's cache within. There's quite a few other things too. But
the other thing this reminded me of when I saw this post the other day, there was. I'm searching on it right now in ForgeBox. There was an AOP advice that I think Kurt Gratz made several years ago called cashback, which was something he had copied from like PHP or something. I thought it was called cashback. Anyway, it was an AOP advice. You could wrap around certain methods that would just automatically cache their output, which did kind of the same thing again, but just leveraging some stuff that Wirebox did.
So instead of having to manually create the function and then call the new function. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's on Cashbox is a library called Cashback. This is something Kurt Gratz made forever ago. And if you're creating your CFCs with Wirebox, it basically allows you to wrap them. Yeah. Just so Django, that's what he copied from. Isn't Django PHP?
Django.
I think it is.
So.
Yeah. So he modeled after the Django Cashback. It's another kind of way of accomplishing the same thing, but without having to write custom code yourself.
Pretty neat. Anyway, but it was an interesting blog post, and you can do that type of caching yourself if you want to. I mean, basically what he did is just serialize the argument struct and use that as a key, and that way, if it existed already, it returned it. If it didn't, you stored the value and then returned that value. So, pretty neat. Pretty cool little blog post. But yeah, definitely use the cache within and Lucy for that. It's pretty cool. I remember when ColdBox, all the handler functions, we had our own caching set up for that, and then cache within came to Lucy functions. It was like, oh, well, for Lucy now we can just use that instead. So, but there's also a couple of jobs posted here. So we're done with the blogs, tweets, and videos, but we have a couple of job opportunities here. So it looks like there's a Cold Fusion developer for Truvian and full-time in Irving, Texas. So if you've got 5 years plus of Cold Fusion experience, including MX7 and 8, using CFCs, of course, and you got some.
They say MX7 and 8.
Yeah.
And what were we just talking about? Those list of things that should be a red flag when looking for a job. I hope they're hiring someone to upgrade their servers.
So yeah, because wasn't MX6 right? Cold Fusion 5, then 6 was MX6.
Yeah. 6 was in the MX moniker came from. I forget what it allegedly stood for. All I can think of is the Cyrix MX CPUs I used to use, and that stood for multimedia extension, but I don't think it meant the same thing in Cold Fusion.
Yeah, isn't that when Macromedia took over though?
Yeah, because 6 was the first version of Macromedia that was rewritten in Java.
Yeah,
on the JVM.
Yeah. So yeah, Anyway, so if you guys are got 5+ years of experience using, CFCs and good with MySQL and MS SQL, writing queries, etc., they're looking for a Cold Fusion developer there. And this is available on getcfmljobs.com. There's also one in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Looks like Cold Fusion developer, 3+ years, with experience of CF9/2016. Looking for passing and transforming JSON and XML, etc. in Cold Fusion. So that's for Auto Europe. And again, that's available if you go to getcfmljobs.com. You can see that post there. And
Man, Wikipedia's letting me down. It's not telling me what MX stands for. MX6 was original codename Neo, which all of the config files still are called Neo hyphen.
Yeah, that's because they're all the Java
I always
files.
I always think that's a bad move when you actually like embed the name into your file names and they're stuck there 18 years later and you look kind of silly.
Yeah, and if anyone catches them, they just say, it's from the Matrix, man.
Yeah, maybe. So, MX was dropped in Cold Fusion 8. Scorpio.
Interesting.
I bet Charlie Earhart remembers what the MX stood for. I know you're on the chat, Charlie. Tell us what it means.
Oh. Yeah, Charlie did say something on there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and there's one more job while we're waiting for Charlie to answer. So there's
Welcome to the Charlie Show, folks.
Yeah, there's a Cold Fusion Azure programmer for TPG Technology Consulting Limited, and it's full-time in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Nice. So must have minimum of 10 years experience within the last 15 years in Adobe Cold Fusion development.
That's a lot, I'll be honest. Like, I'm kind of curious what they think a developer is going to give them with 10 years of experience in Cold Fusion versus, say, 5.
Okay.
I mean, I'll be honest. I've hired a lot of people with 0 years in Cold Fusion, right? And if you're very, very careful in who you hire, and you get people who are clever and like to learn and solve problems, and they know a lot of languages already, I've had people that in a year or two of learning Cold Fusion were more productive than people I had hired with 10 years of Cold Fusion, to be honest. So it's interesting when you see such a large requirement for the minimum. But anyway, interesting. At least there's jobs.
Yeah. So one of those things people say, you got 10 years experience, or you got 10 years of the 1 year experience doing the same thing over and over and over again for 10 years. So.
Well, yeah. Anyway, if you have the experience, there you go. Looks like the job is open until my birthday. That's very nice of them to cut it off on March 31st, which is my birthday.
Yep. Okay, so on the fly here, we're going to see if Brad can come up with a ForgeBox module of the week.
What?
Because I forgot to do it.
Uh-oh.
Preparation is terrible.
No, I'm going to go to forgebox.io and I'm going to click newest and see what came in. Ooh, here we go. Boom. Matthew Clement today posted, I've never seen this before in my life, a CFML wrapper for the dog API, and it's called CFML Dog API. Interact with the self-proclaimed largest open source collection of dog pictures on the internet. Folks, need we say more? Need we say more? I'm pretty certain Cold Fusion has arrived. We have the dog API. This is beautiful. The only way it could be more beautiful is if it was a ColdBox module, because I think it's just a library.
That's pretty funny.
Look at that, dogapi.cfc. Well, there you go. So the dog API is the hottest thing in Cold Fusion. If you scroll down slightly lower than that, you'll see that there's the Ortus MongoDB cache, which was published just about 10 days
released.
ago.
I heard about it. I wasn't sure if it was actually released. So.
1.0.0 snapshot. So that's the native Lucy extension. Use the MongoDB for your session storage, your function storage, your template caches, all that good stuff. So that's we kind of have a trifecta now. We have our Couchbase extension, we have our Redis extension, and we have our MongoDB extension now for Lucy. So if you're deploying Lucy in a clustered environment and you want to be able to get those session scopes and client scopes and application caching into an out-of-process cache, Ortus is building a plethora of extensions, commercial extensions, for you to to use, commercially supported extensions.
Yep, and just one thing to know about that. Obviously, they are commercial. You could probably write them yourself. I know there is a Redis one out there, but there was someone. We had several clients try to use it and spent hours and hours of their time working on it, trying to get it working. So that's why we went ahead and we built the commercial product. It's supported as well, which is one of the benefits of having a commercial product. But if they had just spent the money on the commercial license, then they would have saved all those hours. So if you're a contractor and you're getting paid $50-$60 an hour or something, basically 1 or 2 hours worth of work, and that easily pays for it, no problem. So it's, if you want to do everything yourself, you can, but there's a benefit to using some of these products. And building a Lucy extension is a little more intense than just wrapping up a CFC for you or whatnot. So if you guys want a product like that, it is commercially supported. Find out more, reach out to one of us, and we can try and answer that. But there are some of the options out there if you don't have the ability to pay for a license. So but definitely worth it if you're you're looking for it. And like I said, if your boss doesn't want to pay for it, just tell him you could spend a week working on it, or you could buy the license, see what they say.
All right, so next up is our VS Code tip and trick, and here it is. Use it. Use VS Code. There you go, people. The sooner you use it, the sooner you get to step 3, which is profit.
Yeah. This week I'm actually going to talk about a theme. So I don't know if you guys, you guys like dark themes, light themes. When you're projecting, you always should use a light theme. But a lot of these themes out there are pretty neat. Now, there's one guy, Wes Boss, which is pretty popular. He does a lot of courses online, does a lot of JavaScript and everything else. And so he has a theme he released. It's got over almost 250,000 downloads. It's called Cobalt 2 Theme Official. And I love blues, black and blues, and that type of stuff. Are you kidding me?
Someone is at the front door.
So we have the Cobalt 2 theme. It's really nice blues, a lot of contrast. So they got nice yellows against the blues. It's a great theme. So I recommend you guys check that one out. A lot of the themes out there too allow you to actually set the color theme, so you can choose different variations of it. So a lot of them have built in, but this one is specially designed to be more visually, visually set up. A lot of contrast and everything else. So everything is smooth and good for your eyes, and so I recommend that. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, what's the name of it again?
Cobalt 2 Theme
Cobalt
Official. And it's the Wes Boss. And so
you said Cobalt earlier, and I heard COBOL in my mind, like the programming language.
COBALT 2, Cobalt Theme Official. So it's 5 stars.
I searched for Cobalt 2 and it popped up.
Yep. So it's
it looks sweet.
Yeah. So it's pretty nice. I really like it. Pops out. Just remember when you go to the CF Summit, if you're presenting, to try and switch to a light theme so everybody can see your stuff better.
And to zoom in.
Yeah, and zoom in.
My rule of thumb for presenting is to zoom in until it's ridiculously large, and then zoom in a little bit more, and then you have it big enough.
Yep.
All right, boom. So I just installed it like in the last 2 seconds, and there's a little button that says set color theme. I've never rethemed. Boom! I clicked it, and I'm done.
That
was
cool.
So easy.
It is super easy.
Am I supposed to charge people for what I do when everything's this easy, Gavin?
That's why we don't build themes and IDEs anymore. And I heard that the Cold Fusion 2020, they're going to actually build and support Visual Studio Code too. So I'm not sure if that means that Builder is dying, or if they're just going to beef up their tools for Visual Studio Code. But at the Roadshow, Alicia did talk about how they're taking a serious look at this and trying to adopt VS Code. So
I think that's an excited move. I think it's an excellent move. I think a lot of a lot of wasted time over the years on Adobe releases has been reinventing wheels. And I mean, I think it's great when they see the current momentum the community has around the tool like VS Code and all the libraries that we've already made. So I think if Adobe can jump on that and help support it, it'd be fantastic.
Exactly. Okay, so since you're the special guest of the week, Brad, you're the guest host. You get to talk about all the Patreon supporters.
I get to massacre all the Patreon supporters' names.
Yeah.
All right, so super big thanks to everybody who supports Ortus. Our Patreon supporters basically go right to the bottom line of all of our open source products. So if you're using CommandBox, Coldbox, TestBox, Logbox, CacheBox, Mockbox, ContentBox, you name it, any of those boxes that are free and open source, then we absolutely are excited for the people who give back to that. So we have Andrew Davis, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Joseph Lamoury, Laxma T will be his last name, Richard Herbert, John Farrar, Carl von Setten, Don Bellamy, Samuel Knowlton, David Bellinger, Yogesh Mathur. But wait, there's more. Stephen Klotz, Dan Card, who's with us right now, Jeremy Adams, Brian White, Didier Lesnicki, I think, Scott Steinbeck, Jordan Clark, Matthew Clement, and Dali, to name a few. I think that's the full list. I'm not sure, but
I just looked and it is updated since the last time I updated it. So, do we have Brian White on there?
I think Brian, yes, I said Brian White. Yep.
Okay, Eric Hoffman looks like a new one, and VJ.
Eric Hoffman. And who?
VJ.
So,
we will update the picture, and I'll make sure the show notes includes everyone's full name. But sorry, they did update that on us just right now. But
we even have a Hall of Fame.
Yep. So if you go to the ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors, you'll see the Hall of Fame. So there's an SEO company, SEO search engine optimization, a Hollander company. And then Andrew Davis is in the Hall of Fame from Blue Water Business Solutions. So he's
that guy.
Other host. And Don Bellamy, and then Eric Hoffman. So Eric Hoffman is Data Stream Connection. So got a little Hall of Fame. And if you're looking for different options, there's actually different options and ways to sponsor on Patreon. So there's different packages. You can choose the package that suits you. And so if you want to, there's a whole bunch of Jedi-like names. So there's a Youngling tier, a Mature Youngling, a Padawan, a Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, Jedi Commander. Basically a whole bunch of different options if you're a company and you wanted to really help. But certain packages here actually give you like free tickets into the Box conference and discounts off our services, and maybe even get a special one-on-one dinner, candlelight dinner with Luis.
Ooh. Yeah, candlelight dinner.
So if we're not sued by Disney for using all the Star Wars references here, we'll
yeah.
We'll
you think Adobe's lawyers are bad? You wait till Disney calls in.
Luckily, we don't have that many people chasing us down. But yeah, so that comes to the end of the episode. So again, thank you, Patreon supporters. Thank you, all listeners and watchers on YouTube. And for those of you who new to the show, hope you enjoyed it. And if you like it, please tell your friends. Leave us some reviews on iTunes as well. We'd really appreciate that, or your podcast player of your choosing. So I think with that, Brad, I think we're into another week.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We had a good group of people that were live. Busy chat today, so...
Yeah, maybe we should talk about more controversial stuff more often. So if you got any gossip you want us to share, let us know. Reach out to Twitter, and otherwise, check us out on cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.